Very pleased now to be joined here at Blogging the Boys by the one and only, the dashing, the debonair, one of my all-time favorites, one of your all-time favorites, voted most handsome as a part of his high school graduating class. It is from Big Blue View, Mr. Ed Valentine. Ed, thank you so much for taking the time to join us at BTB.
RJ, I think this is the thing I look forward to the most is whatever ridiculously over the top way that you choose to introduce me every time we do one of these shows.
While we're on the subject, did you ever receive a superlative of any ilk? You know, whether that was most handsome, worst driver, or whatever. Kind of curious what you may or may not have obtained.
Not in my high school yearbook. No, not in my high school yearbook, and other titles that I may have received, or names that I may have been called will stay private. In the words of Brian Daboll, they'll stay private.
Well, just so we're putting our cards on the table, I've received two of these, and these are just objective measures that were handed out, democratic processes. There was no ballot stuffing. I received most courteous once upon a time, and then I also received best smile. So it's up to you whether or not you want to corroborate these, Ed. But the people did speak in certain capacities.
Well, I most definitely think most courteous fits with these over the top crazed introductions that you always give me. So and the smile is memorable.
Well, I did feel a little bit like like a steroid user in the heyday of baseball, because I've had braces, I've had dental work. It didn't feel authentic. You know what I mean? So how can you really say it was authentic or anything like that? Anyway, I've put on talking about the New York, maybe good at football sometime in the near future. Once again, Giants. And both of our teams are 0-1. Both of our teams are 0-1 within NFC East play. Both of them are 0-1 on the road within NFC East play, offered up as the sacrificial lambs to the NFC Championship game participants last year. And a lot of people handed Dallas some flowers for how they played, amid the lightning delay and whatnot at Philadelphia. I don't feel like I've seen that same level of discussion around the Giants. It does seem like most people have said it was a bit moribund from top to bottom, but I'm curious for your perspective.
RJ, can't we just talk about the way this guy played? Can't we just talk about that? Can't we do that? Can't we talk about the way he played this weekend?
If it makes you feel better as a Sun Devil, I'm super pumped to talk about Cam Scatterboo as well. But I have to. I actually, that's my question. It has to be like a unique hell that Daniel Jones looked amazing, and that the Giants still couldn't get off on the right foot.
It is absolutely amazing. It is. I wrote over the weekend that of all of the things that happened, the way the Giants played, it was awful. I mean, they set a week one record, or they tied a week one record for futility that has existed since 1942 by not scoring a touchdown in their third consecutive season opening game. 1942, that wasn't even modern football, RJ.
There weren't even, the Giants are one of the only teams who were hanging around in 1942 to that point.
I mean, I'm not even sure that the ball was actually shaped the way that it is now, but come on. I mean, of all of the miserable things that happened, did Daniel Jones have to go and put on the Saquon Barkley Superman cape and threaten to bring that kind of embarrassment to the Giants again? But just ridiculous, just awful. Brian Daboll probably hates me by now because I started asking him probably in the spring, but most definitely I started asking him day one of training camp what he was going to do differently. And I didn't put it in quite this blunt of a term, but I started asking him what he was going to do differently to avoid the embarrassment of the last two season openers against Dallas and Minnesota, which were combined 68-6 scores. And as it turns out, basically what they did was they played the Commanders, who decided to commit 13 penalties, including one by Jaden Daniels that took a scoring opportunity away from them at the end of the first half, and dropped like 4 or 5 passes to wide open receivers. And Daniels decided to overthrow a wide open receiver who would have gone for like a 60-yard touchdown. So basically all they did was play against a team that didn't score as many points as it should have.
Right.
Because that wasn't a 21-6 game. It was based on what I watched at Northwest Stadium in Landover on Sunday. Basically, that felt like a 35-6 game. It really did.
It's strange. I know I think that we're past the point of making the obvious jokes about the Giants. I feel that way about the Cowboys a lot, just because the material is kind of recycled at this point. We've all said the obvious things. We've all made the obvious connections. You brought up the slow starts, and I went through this thought process, and I was talking to our colleague Brandon Gouton about this. So prior to the Giants kickoff on Sunday, Dallas was a 3-point favorite for the Week 2 matchup against New York. By Sunday evening, that had moved to 4.5 points. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Some of it was, obviously we hadn't seen the Giants play a game yet. And as of Monday morning, Tuesday morning, even Wednesday afternoon, when we're having this conversation, Dallas is now a 5.5 point favorite. So I'm just I'm having a difficult time reconciling how it has moved that much. I think that the move would be understandable if Jaxson Dart had been announced to be the starter, right? Like there's some tax involved with that. But what is it in your estimation that, feels unknown about this team right now when, unfortunately, all the most important things feel known in the worst possible way?
Well, I have to start with this. I think I'm an idiot because because I actually all summer I was like, I'm not picking the Commanders to win. I'm not picking the Giants to beat the Commanders. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And then last Thursday, I sat down and I did it. I'm like, I'm picking them to beat the Cowboys, but I am not picking them to beat the Commanders because I don't think the Cowboys are as good as the Commanders. And then I went and picked them to beat the Commanders. And of course, that worked out really well for me. But look, I think what you're seeing is maybe a little bit of just, there was so much optimism about the Giants in the spring and through the preseason. Look, they put all of their eggs on offense in the quarterback basket. Now, Russell Wilson is not the Russell Wilson of 10 years ago, and everybody knows he's not a perfect quarterback. But look, you go to Pro Football Reference and put Daniel Jones year after year statistics next to Russell Wilson's year over year statistics. And even in the last 5 years, when teams have bounced, Russell Wilson from locker room to locker room, and guys have probably wanted to hit him over the head with heavy objects at times, Russell Wilson's numbers are consistently better than Daniel Jones's numbers. You can argue that at times Jameis Winston has been a better quarterback than Daniel Jones.
That's not a hard argument to make.
At times he hasn't been a better quarterback than I was in 8th grade, but at times he's been a pretty good quarterback. And then of course they have Jaxson Dart, which gives them hope, optimism for the future. And they put all their eggs in the quarterback basket that better quarterback play would make their offense function better. And that didn't happen on Sunday. And the good quarterback play was in Indianapolis with the guy they kicked out of the building, in the middle of last season. So I don't know. I think the point spread for me largely is, I think it's twofold. Partially it's a reaction to Vegas and to bettors sort of realizing that until further notice, the Giants are still the Giants that we've known for the last couple of years. And the other part of that, RJ, is, let's be honest, I had some fun at your expense and at the Cowboys' expense when they traded Micah Parsons.
Oh,
Okay.
get in line. I mean,
You know,
sure.
the entire NFL world had some fun at at the expense of Jerry Jones. And let's be honest, I'm still going to continue to have fun at the expense of Jerry Jones, because Jerry Jones is the one and only reason why the Dallas Cowboys have not won a Super Bowl in the entire second half of my lifetime. But look, I think there's also been perhaps, that Dallas gave Philadelphia a pretty good game. They were, they had a chance to win that game. They were competitive. And I think maybe there was a pump the brakes. Maybe Dallas isn't going to stink entirely and be a 4-win team just because
Right.
they traded Micah Parsons. So I think maybe there's two reasons for that.
This is a mandatory inclusion all the time, just because I believe in giving people their flowers. Ed, and this is for the audience's note, because you know this. Ed, I know nobody cares anymore because Micah's a Packer, but Ed called Micah being like who he has become. Ed was the only person who I speak to professionally that legitimately, and we all were evaluating him as an off-ball linebacker in the draft cycle ahead of 2021. Ed said, no, I believe this dude can be an amazing edge rusher. So another tip of the hat to you, my friend. I agree with you. There are often times where the Cowboys meme of it all, I say this often, makes evaluating them objectively difficult. People just kind of listen to the screaming and the noise and who they are. And so you're right. I think there is a bit of an awakening saying, okay, maybe they're a proper football team. Maybe we were just having too much fun. I did want to touch on Jaxson Dart, because I think this is the question for the Giants right now. And maybe it's a question you share. But why not play Jaxson Dart? I know that sounds somewhat, soon, like it's week 2 or whatever, but is there even a collective of Giants fans who are saying, no, let's do this? I have to imagine the, readers and viewers of Big Blue View are saying, no, I don't need to see any more Russell Wilson. I'm ready to see Jaxson Dart.
Oh, of course there's a lot of that, RJ. And there's a lot of that in the NFL media at large. And there's the other voice of, even though Dart was really good in the preseason, there's a lot of learning that he still has to do. There's a lot of footwork stuff he still needs to clean up. There's a lot he still needs to learn. And there's that other piece of the way that the Giants offensive line looked on Sunday. Do you really want to put him out there and get him beaten up? I have been a proponent. I was a proponent before the season started of, look, the Giants put this quarterback room together this way for a reason. Okay. They put this quarterback room together this way with the 2 veteran quarterbacks surrounding the rookie. Russell Wilson has 14 years of experience, Super Bowls, 10 Pro Bowls, all of that. And he's not that guy anymore, but he's got a lot of good experience and he's got a tremendous work ethic and the way that he goes about his business that Jaxson Dart can learn from. Jameis Winston is a guy who he's a former number 1 overall pick. Okay. He's had obviously ups and downs in his career. When Jameis Winston is on the field, sometimes those ups and downs go from one throw to the next. But he still is the only quarterback in NFL history, I think, with a 30 touchdown, 30 interception season, which in typical Jameis Winston fashion, he did while he was throwing for more than 5,000 yards. It's just, it's amazing how he can be good for both teams at the same time. It really is amazing. But the thing about Jameis Winston, Jaxson Dart said, even before he was drafted, he said, I think if there was one NFL player I'd like to be teammates with, it's Jameis Winston. And the thing of it is, Winston has tremendous ups and downs experience-wise in his career that he's willing to share with Jaxson Dart.
Sure.
He stays late at night with Jaxson Dart and goes to the gym with Jaxson Dart to do workouts at night. He spends a lot of time mentoring and helping the kids. So the Giants set this room up this way for a reason. They set this room up because they don't want to put too much on Jaxson Dart too soon. And I've been a proponent of that. I say this. Has it ever hurt or ruined a young quarterback to sit and wait his turn, to sit and watch for a while? I think the answer to that is no. But I think the flip side is I think it's ruined a lot of quarterbacks to go out there too soon and get their confidence shattered.
It is a cyclical argument. We're talking. Granted, it wasn't intentional how JJ McCarthy sat his true rookie year in the NFL, but he sat, obviously learned a lot, adjusted to the NFL level, even having, with all due respect to Jaxson Dart, a much more prolific collegiate career than Jaxson Dart. So, and Patrick Mahomes is a great example, Aaron Rodgers, but we can point to obviously examples of players who began their rookie season and were incredibly successful. I would offer Dak Prescott as one of those. As it relates to college, I'm a Sun Devil, and I mentioned I love Cam Skattebo. I know it's only one game, but he was completely and totally who I expected him to be at the NFL level in this game against Washington. He feels like somebody. Malik Neighbors is supremely special, and I want to ask about him in a moment. But it does seem like Cam Skattebo has provided some jolt to the Giants' offense that has been absent for a while. Is that read correct?
I would say yes, but you do realize, of course, we're talking about a player giving a jolt to an offense when his statistical line for the day,
the highlight was awesome, Ed.
But it reads 2 carries for -3 yards.
They were the most
plus the 1 catch. But yes.
Marion Barber once had the greatest 2-yard gain in NFL history. I'm sure you've seen the highlight against the Patriots. That's kind of what this Cam Skattebo thing was like. It was astounding football, even if from a net standpoint it wasn't, supreme.
You have to love Skattebo, and you think he does bring an energy and an excitement and a passion and just a toughness that has to be infectious.
Right.
And it's fun to watch. This was why Sunday was so disturbing for the Giants. There's so much excitement, so many good vibes, and then just nothing. And we go back to the Jaxson Dart argument and the question of when should he play?
Right.
And I get the whole idea of, and I still believe it would be best for Jaxson Dart the longer the Giants can wait to put him out there. The flip side of that is Brian Daboll's future is tied to Jaxson Dart. It's not tied to Russell Wilson. It's not tied to Jameis Winston. And the more this Giants ship lists sideways, the deeper it sinks, the more trouble Brian Daboll is in. And he is not going to go down with the ship without getting Jaxson Dart on the field and giving ownership an idea of what a Daboll Dart pairing could look like. And I will say this, last thing I'll say is that might be in the third quarter on Sunday. If they go out and scores and put up a goose egg in the first half, that might be in the third quarter on Sunday. It really might.
That's been my thought this whole week. We're talking on Wednesday, but was that, while Russell Wilson was named the starter, I by no means am under the assumption that he's going to play the entirety of the game. To your point, I think that it could be a matter of, okay, let's just, enough is enough. We've spent 6 quarters in the Russell Wilson era. It's enough to move on. My penultimate question, I love the word penultimate. We don't use it enough as a society in my estimation. Malik Neighbors has drawn some discussion about attitude, or you've used the word vibes, about things not necessarily being copacetic. He's obviously an inordinately special player. We've seen that, through his young career. what is the overall kind of temperature check on Neighbors? Is the ceiling still, as high as ever? Does it feel diminished? Does it feel cloudy? Is there any truth or legitimacy in your mind to the disgruntled nature? And that it's difficult not to take everything back to Jaxson Dart, because you do wonder what a change at quarterback would do for the attitude or the emotions or whatever. But your thoughts on Neighbors specifically?
Neighbors is still the immensely, incredibly talented player that the Giants drafted. But look, go all the way back to before the draft and Brandon Brown, the assistant GM, when he first brought up the Neighbors discussion with the Giants front office, he said, we all knew that this was a guy we were going to have to spend an inordinate amount of time with, because there is a big personality there.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of, NFL players refer to it as dog, but there is also a lot of, and Neighbors has admitted it. If I don't get the ball, I'm going to tell you about it. If things don't go well, I'm going to tell you about it. If I don't think the head coach is telling the offensive coordinator to get me the ball often enough, I'm going to tell the head coach about it. And he doesn't apologize for that either, because he says, when we get a chance to talk to him, he says, they brought me here to speak my mind. They brought me here to help change this, and they don't want me to be quiet. So they know when things aren't going well, they know that that's coming, and they just deal with it. What I will say about Neighbors and the Giants is what I said last year when the Daniel Jones thing finally came to a head and blew up. By the time Malik Neighbors has an opportunity to be a free agent, if not before, all right, if the Giants don't get this right, I think you and I and the entire NFL knows where Malik Neighbors is going to be playing in a couple of years. Malik Neighbors will be in Washington catching passes from Jaden Daniels as fast as he can make it happen if the Giants don't get this right. That's just, for me, that's just where it is. Those two guys are best buddies. Malik Neighbors knows where the quarterback is, who will make him look like Jamar Chase. And if the Giants don't get this right with Jaxson Dart, Malik Neighbors is not sticking around. That's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, it feels similar to how Eagles fans tried to manifest Micah Parsons being traded there, and albeit, it, I guess almost happened to some degree. But it's hard, I imagine, for Neighbors to not look at Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and to feel like that should be us, that should be me, we should be having that type of success. So I agree with you. I said that was my penultimate question. And my last one, the loser of this game will be, as I mentioned, 0-2 overall, 0-2 in division. And 0-2 is a very, very difficult thing to come back from. It's often discussed once we get to week 3. The 93 Cowboys, notably the first team ever to start 0-2 in the Super Bowl, the 2007 Giants, the second team to do so. This is a listing of modern New York Giants teams. You mentioned Pro Football Reference a moment ago. This is from StatHead. To start off a season 0-2. In the last 18 years, which dates back to that 07 year, they've started 0-2 10 times. 10 times in just the last 18 years. I mean, it's as evidenced by their final record, it is difficult to make your way back from. So I guess my question is, do you think whoever loses this game, maybe if it is the Cowboys, that this kind of future awaits them?
Very possibly. I know it is if it's the Giants. Look, it's even worse than 10 times in 18 years. It's 6 times in the last 8 years. Okay. And 0-2 for the Giants has usually led to something like 1-8, 2-7, 1-9, something like that. So this is a massive, massive football game for the Giants. I mean, they have Kansas City and then the LA Chargers the 2 weeks after this game. So you're staring at serious potential for 0-4 if if they don't win on Sunday. So it's a massive game for the Giants. I look at now, Dallas Cowboys fans, you may feel differently. Okay. There's one thing about the Micah Parsons trade that is, to me, from a Dallas perspective, that's almost beneficial this year. Okay. It's, in a way, it's tremendously freeing
for the Cowboys
because there are now zero expectations on the Cowboys. If they go 0-2, people are going to say, oh, well, they just traded their best player. What do you expect? We have no expectations that they'll be good because they pushed all their chips to the table for the future. When I look at the Cowboys, this is the year. If you're an opponent of the Cowboys, this is the year to get the Cowboys because once they do get a chance to make all of those first round picks, once they do get an opportunity to add that talent, that could bode well for the future. But there's no expectations in Dallas right now. So I mean, I see this as, if Dallas goes 0-2, like I said, it's just, well, they just traded their best guy. They're punting on this season and putting their and banking on the future anyway. So that's how I look at it with Dallas.
That's interesting to hear from a Giants perspective. And I think that somewhat played itself out in the opener. A very loose team despite all the noise. And you would think that the drama of it all would have intensified everything. But something I said then was, that it would have been much more embarrassing had the Eagles lost that game. And obviously it's defending champs and whatnot, because to your point, the Cowboys lose. It's like, oh no, they're going to make more fun of us, no, they're going to talk about how we haven't won the Super Bowl in forever. How will we deal with this? You know what I mean? I love that there is a power and a freedom to, whatever this is, whatever you want to label it.
Right. Yeah. It's just, you stripped away the 2025 expectations when you traded away Micah. That's just that if Dallas makes the playoffs this year, that from my perspective, I would look at that as a bonus.
So basically, Ed Valentine signs off on the notion that Jerry Jones is very, very, very smart and is playing chess while we're all playing checkers.
Did I do that? Did I do that? I didn't mean to do that.
As we close, prediction for Sunday, and that can be anything you want, whether you want to say who wins or loses, how you think the game will go, just your predictive analysis for the way this game's going to unfold.
The only thing I will say is I think Jaxson Dart's in the game by the third quarter. I think Jaxson Dart is in the game by the third quarter. Look, the fact that Brian Daboll is itching to get Jaxson Dart on the field. Daboll won't say it. He says all the right things about Russell Wilson and how much he respects Russ and all of that. All you need to know is when Daboll was interviewed on Sunday night in the post-game press conference, he was given two opportunities to say Russell Wilson is still our starting quarterback. And he said, I need to go evaluate the tape. He said, I want to go evaluate the tape. Yeah, I have confidence in Russ. This was not Russ's fault, but I need to go evaluate the tape. And that tells you that rattling around in Daboll's mind is, geez, I can't wait until I can stop answering this question and just get Dart on the field, but I can't do it yet. Because the next day he turned around and said, Russ is the starter and all of that. But it just tells you that he's itching to get Dart in games. So if the Giants start slowly on Sunday, I think Jaxson Dart's in the game.
I agree with that. I think Cowboys win. But I agree with you very much so. I think that Jaxson Dart will throw a pass. He will be in this game in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So we'll see how right you are. Ed Valentine from Big Blue View. Ed, is one of my favorite people in this whole world. As we leave, Ed, you told me you had McDonald's for lunch today. What did you order? I have to know. That's the last question. Then we get out of here.
Just chicken nuggets. Just
Oh, well,
a chicken nugget meal.
What kind of sauce? I was hoping it was going to be chicken nuggets.
I'm a barbecue sauce guy.
Oh man, sweet and sour, Ed. Come on, man.
I'm a barbecue sauce guy. You know, I put strange stuff on things that make my wife. She every time I go to order a sub, and I put pickles on everything, and it drives my wife crazy. I'll buy a sub and she's like, "Do you put pickles on that?" I'm like, "Yep." And she's like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." So I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I mean, that's better than pickles, I guess. Ed Valentine from Big Blue View. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later on this season.
All right. Thanks, RJ.